Hi, I'm Chris Tull, the CRT concrete consultant. I've been in the concrete design and construction industry for 30 years. I have a BS in civil engineering from Cornell University. I've worked for a concrete contractor, a construction manager, and I've been active in the ready mix business for quite some time. I started CRT Concrete Consulting in February 2000, and I focus on a relationship approach to technical issues. So people call me generally for two things. One, I know, but maybe more importantly, they contact me for what I can find out. I don't know everything. I have a lot of relationships in the design and concrete construction community, so I'm able to find out things and provide answers to my customers. I'm really an inclusive type of person. I don't want to come in and beat the table and say, you shall do this. Again, I don't think what we do is all that complicated, so we can have an environment where everybody gets what they need in order to give the owner a good project. What makes the phone ring for me these days are three different areas that I primarily work in. I work in concrete mixtures. People are always trying to reduce shrinkage and curling in concrete slabs and concrete pavements. That keeps me busy from a material standpoint. That issue also keeps me fairly busy in the slab business with curling and shrinkage of slabs. And really a fundamental misunderstanding that largely exists with structural engineers when it comes to soil-supported pavements or slabs. That keeps me busy. And then concrete pavements is certainly a growing industry where we're seeing pavements that are being designed and constructed as block placements rather than the conventional strip pours or slip form pavements. If the phone rings before and early, then typically my fees are smaller. And typically owners' fees are smaller when they're not engaging in consultants and attorneys and things. Typically when I'm engaged before the project begins, I like to review the drawings, and most of the time the structural engineer of record, he has a fairly good hand on the slab thickness. However, what I've learned a lot from structural engineers is they like to bind everything up with reinforcing steel, which can lead to slab cracking. So my role maybe principally is not a designer, but more of a slab detailer, that if I can adjust some details from conventional structural engineering to more slab and pavement friendly details, then we can reduce cracking along the way. To maximize the benefit of my fees, it's best to bring me in early. So, hey, we're building a building pad and we're putting in a big box slab, and we'd like to bring you on board to work hand in hand with our contractor, hand in hand with our designer, and sometimes my role may be more of a facilitator. So really what we're all after to make the owner happy, and we're all after to make a fair living along the way. So the earlier I get involved, the less stress the situation has, and the more adaptations we can make and create a win-win-win environment. But unfortunately, my phone does ring quite a bit after the fact where there are problems, and those are challenges to where my customer is not very happy to see me because he's got a problem on his hands. Usually what the issue is a lack of communication and a lack of people meeting expectations. So an owner might have an expectation for a perfectly flat floor that's not cracked, and that may not be reality, but he doesn't know when he's buying that floor that he's going to get some variation. So a lot of times that would be as meeting expectations and discussing expectations. And we do that after the fact. Sometimes that can be a contentious conversation. Yeah, I think a lot of time that people say it's just a slab. And I've been on projects there they call you up and they say, hey, we're not happy with our slab, and maybe the slab's under designed, maybe the slab's got 3/4 inch of curling, maybe the slab's got joints 25 feet in center, and when you look at it, it's just that the whole team really didn't have any expertise on slab on ground construction. Building owners, they don't know, and I like working with owners that don't know what they don't know, and they're willing to ask. So that typically works best. Even if you have a guy who's cost conscious, because everybody is cost conscious, there's ways to detail slab on grade and concrete pavements so there isn't problems down the road, and some of the details don't necessarily cost more money. Now, after the bid, every change costs more money. So that's why I like to get involved early, and if I can get involved and have influence with the designer and influence with the potential bidding contractors ahead of time, then everything works out to be more affordable for the owner. With anybody in life, it's always good to know where your areas of expertise are and not be so stubborn to know where you don't have them. So I like working with engineers. However, I don't believe I've ever got a call from an engineer that said, hey, I want to bring you on board on this slab because I want to make sure it goes smoothly. It's usually the owner that would call me, or the engineer might call me after the fact when there's a problem, but very rarely do I get a call from the engineer of record before the fact. Well, what I would love to, if I had one item that I would like to communicate to the engineers of records or the architects, is that shrinkage is not a water cement ratio issue. It's a paste volume issue. And we've got a lot of designers that are getting artificially low water cement ratios, and the result of that is the ready mix producer and the contractor are increasing their cement factors in order to meet a water cement ratio, thus increasing paste volume and increasing shrinkage and curling. I think concrete contractors generally want to do a good job. If the specifier or the engineer of record creates an environment to where he cannot succeed, then I don't think there's a value in that for the owner or anybody else. So I like to make sure that what I design or what I detail is constructible. I think that's the most important thing. And furthermore, if my ideas can only be successfully built by the top 1% of contractors, I don't know that brings value either. So I like to make sure that the average guy on the street can succeed in bidding and working on projects I'm involved in. While all of us in this industry are proud of what we do and we think we bring value, I don't think we're doing rocket science or open heart surgery. There's some common concepts out there that people should be well aware of and be willing to be open-minded of it, and I include myself in that too, because there's a lot of good engineers in the industry, certainly. There are a lot of very good contractors in the industry that have taught me a great deal, and there's a lot of good suppliers in the industry that have some good ideas and good technologies that should be incorporated. One of the issues that I see out there is building codes. I'm a big fan of accurate and current building codes. There are states that I do business in that, for instance, the residential code is 7, 8, 9 years old. They don't keep up with the building codes. And in the commercial code, one thing I think is a disservice to owners is the code requiring 6 mil visqueen in the code. That's not doing anybody any good, and a lot of these moisture vapor transmission failures in flooring is a direct result that the code is not correct in having the proper vapor retarder under the slab. When I deal with manufacturers, what I want is data. I want numbers. I don't want opinions. I don't want how you feel. I'd like to have data, and there's a lot of good vendors out there in the design and concrete construction community that do a very good job of it. Stego is certainly one of them. However, I'm seeing a bit of a rush on some chemical admixtures in concrete with claims of no shrinkage of harder slabs and no shrinkage and no bleed water, no moisture vapor emissions. And I hear a lot of claims and don't see a lot of data, and that's concerning to me. Lastly, with my relationship with the vendors is I'd like great communication. I want to make sure that whoever vendor I'm talking to or manufacturer I'm talking to keeps me up to date with what not only they're doing, what their industry sector is doing. So when I'm talking to owners, that I'm up to speed. And lastly is I'd like to be kept in the loop on projects. If certainly that all vendors are trying to sell their product, that's what they're there, and I think that's a good thing. But if you're calling on one of my customers, I'd like to know about it from you rather than hear about it from the owner. Well, I think we're halfway through next is extended joint slabs and extended joint pavements. I think that the idea that our slab on ground have 15-foot joints on center, I think that's a very good concept. However, the problem in these buildings when you talk to owners are joints. So there's a lot of good technologies out there to extend joints. Maybe that has, pick a number, 20% of the market now, and I feel in a short period of time, 5 years or so, that joining at column lines is going to be commonplace, not the exception. The joint spacing is being driven by maybe two different factions. One is that the joints themselves are problematic to an owner. That Floors curl, they chip, they spall. So there's a notion fundamentally to get rid of joints. The other thing that's happening now is with these robots in these distribution centers, they don't like joints very well, and they like flat floors, and they like floors that are placed flat and stay flat. So I think we're going to see a movement not only to extended joints, but we're going to have construction accountability for floor tolerances, not up to 2 feet of joints, but maybe through construction joints. I think that's on the way fairly quickly as well.